Good afternoon. Simple Life Philosophy here. Just got done watching the World Cup final, and Spain won 1-0. Unfortunately, I wanted Argentina to win. I've been a Messi fan for quite a few years, basically since the last World Cup. And I was sad to see Argentina lose and Messi lose, but it was a good game. It was all right. Spain definitely outmaneuvered them for most of the game, so they deserved it. But watching those guys run for 90 minutes, for an hour, or over, 45 minutes straight per period, and then 30 minutes of extra time is really impressive. And it's really a testament to hard work and, doing your absolute best and giving your all. And it reminded me of a story from when I was a little younger. I was playing a pickup game of soccer with some people down at a school near here. And it was really just random. They happened to be there, and they were kicking around the soccer ball, and we ended up shooting against each other. It was like 5v5 or something like that. Nothing too serious. It was just random people that were down at the school playing soccer. And there was a girl there, and I broke away one time and got ahead of her, and I went and scored. And she congratulated me on that, and she said something to me that has stuck with me. This is almost 10 years ago, and it's stuck with me for that entire 10 years. Because it struck me at the time that she said it as a really interesting philosophy. And I decided to incorporate it into the rest of my life. At the time I was working out a lot. I'm working out a lot now, but I was working out a ton then. In fact, more than I do now. I was working out like 5-7 days a week. And I did a lot more cardio then. And so it really kind of fit into my workout routine. And it also applies to other things in our lives. And the thing that she said to me after I scored that goal is she came up to me and congratulated me. And she said, "I like how hard you went on that because I always like to sprint through the finish." Sprint through the finish. And again, that struck me as a really interesting philosophy. Something that can be applied widely to the rest of your life. Not just exercise, not just cardio, but work in general and life in general. And that's this idea of sprinting through the finish. When you're exhausted, when you feel it's done and the game is over and the race is run, you still have a little more left inside of you that you can put in and give. And that's the sprint through the finish. This is kind of a hard concept to describe, but I consider sprinting through the finish like, let's say you get to the end of your workday and you want to just, how at the end of your workday you want to like take that break at the end of the workday and kind of just relax for the rest of the day, maybe duck out early and duck the other people so you don't get any more work. See, that's the opposite of sprint through the finish. Sprint through the finish is, instead of ducking out, when everybody else is ducking out early, when everybody else is exhausted and giving in, you dig a little deeper down into yourself and you try to pull up that last little bit that you have, the stuff that you're saving for later. Because when you're at the finish, now is later, or later is now. You're there. You're at the end. So that's the time when you dig in deeper and you pull up that last little bit that you have and you sprint through the finish. And this will give you an edge. It'll give you an edge on those other people that have already become exhausted and have already thrown in the towel and have already given up on the day, on the event, on the exercise, on whatever it is. It'll give you another edge, and it'll push your edge a little farther so that next time you go to do this thing, you know, okay, I can sprint through I sprinted through the finish last time, I can sprint through the finish this time, and I can take it further, and I can go harder at the end. And another thing it will do, not only will it give you an edge on your competition, it will, frankly, it'll scare your competition, because a lot of your times your competition is waiting and expecting you to give up at the end, to throw in the towel and be tired and be done. And they want to too. They're hoping you throw in the towel so that they can throw in the towel. But when you don't throw in the towel and you stick through to the very last minute and you sprint through that finish line, you will teach yourself and you will teach your competition that you are to be feared. You have an edge. You have the strength to push through to the last minute, so they can't give up. They have to stay in the fight. And that's mental game. It'll scare your opponents. It'll scare your competition. They'll say, wow, that guy doesn't give up. He just keeps going. I'm exhausted and I'm ready to be done, but he's still there putting in the work. So sprinting through the finish. Another example of this where I apply this to my life is even in my own individual things, non-competitive things, like, for instance, cardio. If I'm going to go, let's say, go for a jog, and I'm jogging down the street, and I come to that last block before I get home, a lot of times I'll turn on the gas and I'll try to run that last block as fast as I've run the rest of the jog. Because what is it, 100 yards? And how long does 100 yards take? It's, you can do 100 yards in somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, if you really sprint. So, let's say 10 to 30 seconds, you're gonna have to sprint. That's it. That's what it takes to sprint through the finish and teach yourself that you still have something that you've conserved down inside that you can expend now. And push your edge a little further. And so I'll sprint that last block on a jog and just teach myself that I have the ability to do that. And not only that, but it expands your exercise ability. It pushes your edge on your cardio so that maybe you can go a little further next time, or maybe you can run your course a little faster next time because you pushed your edge at the very end and you know how much more you have to give. So again, this is something that you can apply all around in your life. It'll scare your competition. It'll give you an edge on your competition. It'll push your edge further. Not only that, but it'll teach you your limits. And it'll show you that when you think you've given everything, when you think you have completely exhausted all of your stores, you actually have a little more to give. You've got a little more to give that you haven't given yet. And that'll give you a sense of inner pride or a sense of inner confidence that you know that you can dig deeper inside of yourself and go a little further. And I remember there was a friend with me when we were at that soccer game, where I first heard this. And I remember we walked away after playing in that pickup game. I don't even remember who won. But my friend had heard the young lady say that to me as well, the sprint to the finish. And I don't keep up with this friend much anymore, but in the period that we kept up after that, probably between 5 and 10 years in there, we always kept that memory. And we would laugh about it. And we would remind each other, you know, when we were doing something like sprint through the finish. Sprint through the finish. Give your all. Give your all right up to the last second. And, you know, this actually kind of relates to another old saying that I used to hear. People in my area, they'll say, like, you know, if you got to do something tough and it's not going to take that long. Like, let's say you got a really tough job that you're going to be doing for a day. Well, people will say, well, I could stand on my head for a day, which is like to say, like, you know, how hard could it be? I could do that for a day at least. And I always think about that in relation to this sprint to the finish. Like I was saying, that last 100 yards on your jog, it's going to take you 30 seconds or something like that. You could stand on your head for 30 seconds. It won't be that hard. You feel like you're completely dead and you're completely done and over, but you could stand on your head for 30 seconds. So you could sprint for 30 seconds down the road and finish it off and come across the finish line proud of yourself that you didn't get winded and you didn't give up and you gave your last to the very last second. You know, I think this kind of relates to Argentina, because one of the things that Argentina has done throughout this World Cup is they've scored right at the very end of every game, pretty much. Now, they were trying to score in the World Cup final just now, but they didn't get it. They had a couple okay shots on goal at the end there, and they never did connect, but they tried, and they stayed in the fight. And in every single game, I think there was the game against Egypt where they were down by like 2, and they ended up coming back and winning that game. And there was another game, I don't remember who that game was against, but there was another game that was very close. They were down by 1 late into the game, and they ended up scoring 2 goals and winning that game as well. And the point is that they sprinted through the finish of the game. They showed how much heart they had by staying in the fight until the very last second. And that took them to the final. Now, Spain was a much better team, so Spain ended up winning, but Argentina showed their grit by sprinting through the finish. You know, that's a key word. That's a key word on this idea of sprinting through the finish. Grit. The grit to stay in the fight after you think you're done, and dig deep and see how much you got left to give. And again, it'll scare your competition, because they'll be waiting for you to throw in the towel. But just when they think you're going to throw in the towel, you show up and you go harder. And remember, it's just 30 seconds. It's just that last hour of the workday. It's that last 3 minutes of your jog on the treadmill. It's that last set at the gym. And you could stand on your head for that. It's not that hard. And it'll make you stronger in the long run. And so remember this, like the end of your day, you got a couple more things you have to get done at the end of your day, and you're ready to give up and just go crawl into bed and watch Netflix or whatever and give up for the day. But what if you just sprinted through the finish and you finished off those last couple things you needed to get done today? And what would that do for tomorrow? If you had sprint through the finish and completed what you needed to complete today and clear up tomorrow. Now tomorrow's easier. Now you can get farther ahead tomorrow. Now you can get more done because you have less overhead tomorrow. And so sprinting through the finish, it sets you up for success in the next iteration, the next workday, the next workout, the next time you go jogging, the next time you're in competition with that guy or that person. And they'll have a mental game. Man, this guy, he sprints through the finish, so I have to hold something back because he's going to sprint through the finish, and I have to be ready for that. And that's a mental game for the people that you're in competition with. And I'm sorry to say, but the truth is, you are in competition with millions of people who have your skill sets and who are competing for the best jobs and the best opportunities in your skill sets. And so you have to bring an edge to that in order to be the best, in order to get into that top 10% where you really start winning. And so you have to learn to, one of the edges, you don't have to learn it. You can be one of those guys who rests at the end and takes it easy. But if you want an edge on the people in your skill set, on the people that you're competing with, learn to sprint through the finish of whatever you're doing. And I promise you, it will give you an edge that will surprise you. And I think you get the point. Hopefully this sticks in your head and goes down into your subconscious and starts to sprout up some belief systems for you, changes your behavior into the future. Just say it to yourself. Next time you're ready to quit, at the end of the workday, at the end of your workout, at the end of your jog, say, for one time, I'm gonna sprint through the finish. Tell me your thoughts on this down below. Like and subscribe. And thank you for listening as always. I could really use more subscribers here. I put out a video every single week. And another thing I'll mention before I take off this time is I'm starting a new interview YouTube channel. I'm still kind of getting it around. I'm editing my first couple interviews, and I'm editing those first couple interviews, and I'm setting up the channel, but it's starting to come together. And so if that would interest you, I'm just interviewing, they're like human interest pieces, people who have lived interesting lives. And I'm just trying to get regular people's lives on camera so that people have a chance to tell their story. And I'll be putting those out very soon. The first one is pretty well edited and done. So keep an eye out for those. I'll mention once I get them up and get them going. Thanks for listening. God bless.